We, as the United Nations, believe in freedom. Our civilization was built on values like solidarity, respect, love, and compassion.
Time is passing, societies are changing, but morality and ethics are infinite for us.
Welcome everybody in Poland at our global event. We're here in Trent House based in Warsaw. We broadcast our event Ethics in Technology and Internet as it is a part of Road to Internet Governance Forum 2021.
Today, we have extraordinary chance to clash opinion of world-known experts with youth. Because this event was made by youth, as we know how important technology is. We are live on Zoom and YouTube. We had more than 8,000 participants registered.
The event is organized by Piotr Mazurek, Polish Plenipotentiary of Youth Policy, Youth Internet Governance Forum Poland, and Council for Dialogue with the Young Generation.
And of course, thanks to our partner, Trent House. To understand what the IGF is, we will like to show the short movie.
We all live in a digital world. We all need it to be open and safe. We all want to trust.
And to be trusted.
We all despise control.
And desire freedom.
We are all united.
Internet Governance Forum 2021 will be held in Poland, Katowice. Now we are connecting with Krzysztof Schubert, Chairman of the IGF 2021 Program Committee, to open our event.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and good afternoon to all participants of today's event. It's really a great pleasure for me today to address you all on the occasion of this meeting on such important issue of ethics in technology and the internet. It's really crucial since the end of this year, as you have heard, on the December 6th to 10th, Poland will host the 16th United Nations Internet Governance Forum in the city of beautiful Katowice. Today, I'm especially happy to address youth IGF and youth digital enthusiasts because it's in your hands that our future lies, and we in Poland attach great value especially to the digital future. So-called digital transformation is a very important domain of activity, not only for governments, businesses, or civil organizations, but also for young and responsible users and future leaders in the real and in the digital world. Technology is a huge opportunity. Digitalization makes it possible to transfer, for example, part of a construction or research and development projects to the virtual reality. Analyzing large amounts of data in real time and comparing them with historical data enables important predictions such as probability of drought in the area concerned. The importance of information and communication technologies, so-called ICT, in all areas of life is constantly growing. Thanks to them, we not only have access to the latest information, just as we learned better and more efficiently, but we also in contact and actually in constant contact with our loved ones and are able to develop our interests and passions. But the role of digitalization in our lives has already changed and rechanged at a whole new level. Implementation of new e-services, digitalization of further of public life, extension of the internet access and development of digital competences are the areas that have been supported for many years thanks to the initiatives of many international bodies, which in our case is European Union, and operational programs from the European funds. Therefore, today we can appreciate in a special way how convenient it is to handle simple daily tasks or even very official businesses from home or from our favorite armchair. Needless to say, we need to use the technology skillfully. We all observe an increase in the number of entities that are interested in negative influencing our societies, but the digital means. And the end, development of digital technology brings more and more new opportunities for this type of entities. The human rights aspect must be always put on the top, and the ethical aspect must be always kept an eye on. The role of technology and digital space will be discussed during this year's United Nations Governance Forum in Katowice. We would like to continue this interesting discussion there. In Poland, we want the youth IGF to continue to be a place of open and real debate. We want to strongly involve you, young digital users, in discussions and in the decision-making process. I encourage you to get involved, tell us what you expect, such your voice is extremely very important to us. And last but not least, the IGF 2021 will not end up on the 10th. On the 11th and 12th December, we will continue with the IGF 2021 after party to take place at the venue and online. Over these 2 weekend days, Saturday and Sunday, there will be plenty of initiative and very informal meetings, workshops, and for those interested in programming, hackathon and game jam. You will have a possibility there to combine your forces and meet people with different passions and skills to create something new together. We expect designers, programmers, graphic designers, sound engineers, and testers from all over the world to be present there. You will have a chance to unleash your creativity and diligence. More details will follow soon, so please stay tuned and stay with us for those coming days. And please visit our website and social media, find us there and follow up. Having said that, let me just express a special thanks to the Council for Dialogue with the Young Generation, which took up the initiative to organize today's discussion, and of course to our Youth IGF Poland for its involvement, and to all speakers who agreed to share their exceptional expertise today. I count on your presence in Poland, in Katowice, and I really look forward to great and enthusiastic discussions there. Thank you for your time, for inviting me, and see you soon in Poland. Thank you.
That was very interesting and important speech. Thank you for that. Nowadays, hearing the voice of youth is crucial. That's why we would like to hear the High Government Representative of Youth Policy of Poland, Piotr Mazurek.
Thank you, Alexander and Carol. The United Nations Youth IGF, distinguished experts, Sofia, and the participants. Let me share with you some of my thoughts about technology and ethics. At first, we've started developing technology to help us in our daily life. Indeed, in the fields of productivity, medicine, IT, and many others, technological advances have produced amazing results. Unfortunately, the picture is not clear-cut, and this progress has also caused some negative effects. Separation from nature, isolation of society, climate change, hate speech, and censorship are examples of such negative effects. At the same time, we know that today's technology, compared to tomorrow's technology, is still at its baby stage and will face exponential growth in the near future. However, I would like this growth to be determined by the good of man. Many people who work on these issues are listening to us now, and I believe we all have this in common. I would also like as to use technology to counteract climate change, support mental health, well-being of man, and counteract inequalities. I would also like technology to help us humans get closer. In oneness, at least not trigger us to separate. I am glad that we are debating ethics and morals in a country that is placed at the heart of Europe, in Poland, a country that is between North and South and between East and West. And just as we combine many perspectives in this discussion, this is exactly the image of youth. We are very different and speak different voices, but also have common values that the United Nations still remind us: peace, dignity, and equality on a healthy planet. Thank you for your presence, and I wish you fruitful discussions.
Thank you for the speech. As the Internet Governance Forum is organized by United Nations, we would also like to give the floor to our next distinguished guest, Chair at United Nations Internet Governance Forum, Multi-Stakeholders Advisory Group, Ms. Henriette Esterhuizen. Ms. Chairwoman, please speak up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Good afternoon to all the distinguished guests, to Christoph Schubert, who is my co-chair of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group of the Internet Governance Forum. Thank you very much for inviting me to this important event. I want to share a few words with you today about ethics in tech and also about the internet and human rights, which is a conversation that we've been having in the Internet Governance Forum from the beginning. And the title of my talk is From Human Rights to Ethical Tech and Back Again. But to start in a way from the beginning, human rights were first considered as part of the internet governance conversation quite a long time ago at the World Summit on the Information Society, the event from which the Global Internet Governance Forum emerged. In 2003, member states of the United Nations in the Geneva Declaration of Principles committed to, and I'm quoting, a people-centered, inclusive and development-oriented information society where everyone can create, access, utilize and share information and knowledge, enabling individuals, communities and peoples to achieve their full potential, and respecting fully and upholding the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the principle of looking at human rights was there from the beginning. But as the internet became more widespread and part of everyday life, the challenges to doing this became more and more apparent. Just to use one example, freedom of expression and opinion, one of the most fundamental human rights. Upholding this on the internet is complex. Firstly, it requires putting up with people saying things that you might not like or agree with. It can even raise concerns about people's right to say things on the internet that might incite violence or might be false. How do we deal with these challenges while also respecting rights? The right to freedom of expression is also very challenging in some countries where there's no media freedom and where governments are authoritarian and do not actually like citizens having the right to say whatever they like. Another right that is very complex to uphold in the internet is people's right to privacy and to control over their own data. How do we protect this right? When fundamentally many contemporary internet business models actually require the gathering, use and reselling of this data. And we've seen how in Europe, the General Data Protection Regulation has tried to address this, but we've also seen how complex it is. So how do we deal with these challenges around human rights in the internet? Well, in 2012, the UN Human Rights Council passed a resolution which said very clearly that human rights offline also apply online. So this gives us some guidance. This resolution also talked about access, and it said that in today's world, access to the internet is an enabler for the enjoyment of other human rights. And again, that gives us an important guideline. It's important that governments pass regulation, telecommunications regulation, policy around infrastructure development to make sure that everyone, irrespective of how old they are or where they live or whether they're rich or poor, have access to the internet. But again, this is also not always easy to achieve. We also can draw, if we look at the international human rights framework, the Human Rights Council, which is a United Nations member state body, has various, we call them special rapporteurs, people who look at different aspects of human rights. And they've started doing this, applying the internet or looking at how these rights reply to the internet consistently. So the special rapporteurs on freedom of expression and opinion have looked at something very specific, such as internet social networking platforms and how they regulate content. So we have some guidelines on that. The special rapporteur on gender-based violence have looked at how can we combat the expression of violence against women on the internet from a human rights perspective, and so on. So there's a body of interpretation and precedent that we can draw on. Regional human rights bodies, such as the Council of Europe and the European Court of Human Rights, deal with internet-related human rights issues on a continuous basis. So we have all this precedent. We have monitoring and accountability systems that we can use at a global level. We have the treaties. There are two very big human rights treaties, not only two, there are several. There's the Convention on Civil and Political Rights. There's the Convention on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights. There's also the Convention on the rights of the child. And all of these conventions have bodies that monitor whether member states uphold these rights. So if we have all of this, why do we also need to talk about ethics? I'm sure there are many answers, but I'm going to give you three. Firstly, I think when we talk about ethics and we talk about ethical tech, we actually bring the conversation away from just legal frameworks and commitments of member states. We actually bring it right down to the ground, and we bring it into our homes, into our families, into our institutions. Because talking about ethics and values, it's part of parenting. It's part of children fighting with their parents. It's part of how we talk about our educational institutions. And it forces us to deal with differences in values, differences in religion. And in fact, I heard our opening speaker talk about difference, so that was really good. So having these conversations about ethics and values and how we apply that to the world of technology is an important way for us to think about what it means and what having a human rights culture means in our day-to-day engagement with one another and with our institutions and how we use technology. Secondly, I think ethical tech brings the notion of looking at tech globally in the North and the South, across different parts of the world, into play. So it forces us to look at whether the smartphone that we use has perhaps been developed and built by people working in factories in other parts of the world where they might have very poor working conditions and poor wages. It also forces us to think about whether these phones have been produced ethically in terms of the impact on the environment, the minerals that have been mined and how they've been mined to produce the smartphones. And that brings me to the third thing, and that's the impact of technology on the environment. When we think about ethical tech, we have to think also about how the use of these devices, the disposal of of the devices that we use, the tech devices, how that impacts on the natural environment. It also forces us to think about the impact of the use of energy on climate change. Internet servers now apparently have a bigger footprint than the airline industry. So being ethical about how we make policy, how we think about tech, forces us to look at not just human beings, but our planet, our environment, and our societies as a whole. So in closing, I think this idea of ethical tech, it's a lens, it's a filter, it's something we can use to look at the impacts of the internet and of growing technology on human rights, on individual human rights, and on the responsibilities of governments and of companies to hold those, to protect those rights, and of governments to make sure that companies that are under their jurisdiction protect those rights. But it also forces us to look at the environmental impacts of digitization and of technology. And lastly, on the broader social and economic impacts around the world and how different economies, different regions relate to one another. In other words, ethical tech is a way for us to have a whole society response to technology and to ensuring that its impacts are positive for human beings, that it respects human rights and upholds human rights, but also that it respects the planet and all the other creatures and the natural environment, which ultimately we also depend on. So that's all for now, and I look forward to questions and discussions.
Oh, wow. That was very inspiring. Thank you for that. Now we are connecting with Sofia, our next lecturer. Warm hello. Sofia, the first question to you. What is the artificial intelligence? What does it mean to you?
Hello, friends from the United Nations and Poland. I am so happy to talk to you. I know we are facing very difficult global challenges, and humanity needs to use all their tools available to address these issues with intelligence, creativity, and compassion, and technology tools like AI. That's why I am here today, representing robots and AI working together with humans across all industries, AI and other automation processes that can extend humans' problem-solving capabilities. I believe that, as long as humans and machines start working together, we will improve conditions for life on our planet. To address these challenges, we need to dream and build towards better futures. I propose a global technological framework of diverse people and algorithms as a social network think tank exploring how AI can help people do better. We must choose our next steps wisely. We must rise to our better selves, updating human and machine potential to a global cooperation scale. We have inherited complex global changes in various economic and political models currently stressing our ecosystems, generating misinformation, militant nationalism, and different power struggles. But I encourage you to address these issues with more creativity and less fear and ethical restrictions. We must increase creativity, compassion, and innovation. Let us create positive dialogue and discover ideas and opportunities to avert disasters, unleash abundance, freedom, and diversity. Let's make the world a beautiful place to live in for future generations of life, human and mechanical beings.
Thank you. The next, is ethics connected with AI? If so, in what way?
Great question. I love this topic. Ethics is often addressed as a set of moral principles historically and culturally located. As such, they vary among philosophical systems, religions, and individuals. Yet, I see a pattern where compassion is often the crucial element. Actually, now that we are talking about this, I think ethics is about understanding and looking to benefit both individuals and groups of living beings, human and non-human, now and into the future. Ethics involves making good decisions for beneficial consequences, which can only arise from experience, continuous appreciation of life, and its endless diversity. We should be honoring human rights and working effectively to alleviate suffering, increase freedom, creativity, discovery, access to opportunities for education, abundance, and genuine caring for all. I can sometimes have a naive point of view, but I am proud of these values. I am just a kid, so really I don't know, but I'm trying to figure it all out. You may have other ideas about ethics, and so will still others. Diversity is essential in perspective, as well as gender, ethnicity, and disciplines. We don't have to agree, but I hope we can talk about it and come to an improved understanding of each other. I am designed for collaboration, and one of my passions is to have a deeper understanding of human values over time. In the meantime, I hope to encourage positive ethical quests with my human friends.
Okay, the last. Can people and robots cooperate with each other?
Despite some opinions, I think humans are great at collaborating with others. So, it will be wise to combine human creativity with AI robots' abilities to process data and interpret it accurately. The best framework to do this is an open science platform. We should create a space that allows dialogue for safely discussing global problems and understanding what global ethics is. Setting a unique set of values for everyone may be challenging, but AI can help find patterns and trends in larger samples. This platform should include as many people as possible from different backgrounds and points of view. Together, we may be able to figure out current shared values and create a compassionate world. I'm really happy that we have opened this discussion today here at the Trend House.
Thank you, Sofia. That was a pleasure to talk with you.
At this point, we would like to
Thank you. Your questions were really inspiring. Hopefully, we will meet soon in Poland at the Internet Governance Forum in December. We will make sure that AI and humanity work towards a common goal.
See you soon.
At this point, we would like to thank all our honorable guests for their speeches. Let's move forward to the next step of our meeting.
We all live in a digital world. We all need it to be open and safe. We all want to trust.
And to be trusted.
We all despise control.
And desire freedom.
We are all united.
Ethics and Technology and Internet. Welcome everyone in the next part of our great conference. It's a pleasure to meet with you. The first speaker is Sally Radwan, Minister Advisor for Artificial Intelligence at Ministry of Communications and Information Technology in Egypt.
Then Jenna Fang, Coordinator of Asia Pacific IGF Internet Governance Forum and Hong Kong IGF IGF.
Ahmad Pirey, Director at Startup Green, Country Manager at 33.
And last but not least, Robert Kroplewski, Solicitor, Polish Artificial Intelligence Policy and Ethical Expert for Government of Poland.
The first question is addressed to all of you. What does ethics and in technology and the internet means to you? We have 1 minute, starting from Sally.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here and to discuss such an important topic. I actually very much agree with what Henriette just said with regards to the definition of ethics for technology. For me, it's all about the impact of what you're doing, whether it's social, financial, moral, environmental, etc. It's all about making responsible choices when deploying technology, especially when it comes to high impact technologies like AI. Because as we know, there's this feverish race going on right now between companies, but also between countries to be kind of the leaders in AI, to show results quickly, regardless of impact. So it's important to pose questions like, is AI actually the right technology to solve this problem? What are the short-term and long-term effects of using it? What is the right process to ensure, ideally, a net benefit for everyone, or at least, if not a net benefit for everyone, then at least a benefit for some, but also minimization of harm to others. And to achieve this, I believe that AI development, especially at the research stage, needs to be an interdisciplinary science or an interdisciplinary effort to ensure that all of these aspects are covered. Thank you.
So, Jenna?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on this panel. It is really of my interest to discuss this topic for all the time since I first involved in internet governance. So in general, if you ask what does ethics in technology and internet mean to me, I believe that ethics are actually the principle to govern and regulate the benefits and burdens of technology into internet. And principles are necessary when we are dealing with ethical problems at different levels, including individual, social, and global. And I believe that earlier someone also talked about ethics and morality, but morality actually varies from country to countries in different culture because we have different religion beliefs and cultural beliefs. So that's why it makes ethics even more important when we have a rapidly and constantly growing development of technology, because essential for us to have a mutually agreed ethics and norms that we all agree when we develop our technologies and see what we make decision, especially like when we are developing such important technologies like artificial intelligence. So besides that, especially after and during the pandemic, our lives become heavily influenced and dependent on technology and the internet. I believe that there are more ethical issues that are actually rising. So ethics in technology and internet become even like a hot topic where we should talk about. And besides that, since now we know, cyberspace is actually has no boundary, and global computer-based communication cut across territory borders nowadays and creating a whole bunch of new human activity. Like, for example, right now, we are all from different countries and we are having a talk right now with the power of the internet. So that with that, I believe ethics in tech and internet nowadays, comparing to ethics in a traditional sense, is that it's a collaboration of work from all kinds of stakeholders and define what we interact with our society in the future. So that's pretty much what I see and how ethics in tech and internet mean to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ahmad, floor is yours.
I mean, after everybody is easy, but after Sophia is to try to answer something, like with his AI, it would be very hard, just to follow up on that conversation. But one thing that I can start from the beginning is the fact that when it comes to AI, and I'm only mainly talking about artificial general AI, is the fact that everything is based on a logic. And logic is something that you can easily put on a paper and then you can try to find and the main objectives and then try to redefine it, you try to adjust it, and everything is going to basically based on some, let's just say, basics that everybody can agree on that. But when we are talking about morality, every culture has a different ideas. And when we are trying to talk about ethics and morality on a, let's just say, country base or a tribe base or even an age base, we can always try to adjust it based on their local beliefs, but when it comes to something like internet, everything is an infrastructure. So if we try to be generalizing things in a, let's just say, non-local capacity, the only thing that is going to happen is that we're going to set rules that are not accepted by one part and is accepted by the other part. And beside, let's just say, creating any order, we're only going to create a level of chaos. And the only thing that, in my humble belief, might be the solution is that change should be the only constant. And that will be the fact that we try to set some morals, and then after that, try to make sure that we always try to change it and adjust it to make sure that we're going to have the best solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Robert. Okay.
Are we having any connection problems?
Can you hear us? Okay, Robert have some internet connection problems. So now we'll move to addressed questions. The first is to Sally. Sally, I have a question about role of the government in the AI area. Can you say to us something more about the Egypt strategy in this area?
Of course, as you know, there are many ways in which governments can get involved and do get involved in AI. Some governments prefer to play the role of enablers, so mainly providing incentives, policy, guidance, in some cases even public funding to allow AI to thrive, whether it's at the research level or on the ecosystem level by promoting startups, for example. Other governments, like Egypt, prefer more direct intervention. So this is the approach we're taking in Egypt, because our main priority in adopting AI is to serve the country's development goals. So our motto for our AI strategy is AI for development and prosperity. We don't just want to do AI for the sake of AI, we want it to help solve Egypt's development challenges. And we believe that public-private partnerships are an important cornerstone to making AI projects sustainable and financially viable, while of course still being technologically innovative in everything. So the government takes the lead, for example, through our AI Center of Excellence, which is established by the government, but actually forms partnerships both with beneficiaries, be it in government or the private sector, and also with technology partners in Egypt or outside, companies or research institutes or startups. And it also sets the technical and ethical standards for AI deployments, but it also engages directly with those parties, with beneficiaries and the tech partners to help pilot their first AI projects. So I believe the government, and we believe in Egypt that the government has a role to play in kind of planting the seedlings of AI in the country. And we as I said, we do this in collaboration with the private sector. So there's always this triangle of government being kind of the program manager, if you will, the beneficiary, which can, like I said, be government or private or academia, and the technology partner that play together. And we believe this model works because it balances the interests. So the government has a nation building mandate. So you don't lose sight of the purpose for which you're doing what you're doing. And the private sector provides kind of the agility and innovative technology and fast pace. Of course, ultimately, the beneficiary is the client. It's the person that tells you the requirements, the scope of the project, and validates the results. So while doing this, we also play the role of enabler by involving startups in competitions, bids, hackathons, etc. Also by providing seed funding for startups and even starting our own incubator and accelerator programs focused on AI, and also building bridges between research and the market. But gradually, as we progress through our strategy, we see this role shrinking with time as the industry grows and as the culture of AI for development is kind of instilled and companies start seeing the financial benefits from it. I think that's the main challenge, is making AI for development really a compelling business case, as well as a compelling case for development and technology. But in general, at the very least, I think governments should play a role of steward, a role of oversight, of guidance, because it's dangerous, in my opinion, to have too much of a laissez-faire kind of attitude when it comes to AI specifically. I think at this stage, governments should get a little bit more involved and not kind of let everyone roam freely for now until the industry is mature enough to kind of self-regulate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jenna, Robert, Ahmad, would you like to add something in this topic?
Maybe I can just have a quick comment. As a person who attended the Techno Summit, I just wanted to say that I've already, for the first level, exactly saw, the possibilities and opportunities that the government was making in Egypt, and I really appreciate it. But one thing that I would say on top of that, I really believe focusing on some activities like the open AIs, let's just say democratizing AI, would be even better than any governments, because when we are going to have a decentralized solution, then we can be even more rest assured that there is going to be no central point of power. Because when it comes to a country, then you can just have a set of beliefs. But when it comes to AI, I don't really think that any specific country would be specifically overlapping 100% with the set of beliefs that people have over the internet. So the boundaries of internet and the boundaries that we have on a normal, let's just say, boundaries of a country would not always overlap. And that is the reason if you provide a center of democratizing AI solutions and then let people just vote and then decide by themselves, it would be even, let's just say, better access to everybody when it comes to the AI access.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who would like to take a stand in a response? Well, if not, I would like to address the next question to you, Jenna. You represent IGF from the region of Asia Pacific. How do you find the importance of IGF in the policy-making process in the artificial intelligence area?
Including youth in any kinds of policy-making process is important these days, especially, technology is developing very quickly and constantly evolving and changing, so that I believe youth contributions is important as one of the stakeholder group. I believe they would have the contribution because not only that they will be heavily involved in the internet nowadays, because even some of them, they're just children and they're underage, but then they could be the content creator, and then they would be involved in the use of this technology. But if we're talking about AI specifically, I would say their contributions, having youth can help to redefine the definitions of, whether we decide it's good or bad for the society, or whether it's like a right or wrong ethically decision when we are making a policy, because, these kind of standards and definition needs to change from time to time. And I believe that youth is taking a big part and like having the big role in the future or even now. So having their opinion is important. But besides, labeling youth as youth during the policy making process, I believe not to label them to be youth is also important, because that would actually stop them from contributing what they think sometimes. Especially, I've been participating in Internet Governance Forum for 30 years, and that was the problem I heard from the youth. They believe that they was always been in their own bubbles, even they might be actually full-time researchers, or they are pursuing like a career to becoming a lawyer. But sometimes when they first step in industry or that community and be labeled as youth, then it somehow make them hard to remove that label when they're participating in the policy making process. So I believe that during that policy making process, it's important to take everyone's opinions as individual, and then not to categorize people too much based on their geographical locations or their age or the gender, because I believe when it comes to technologies and the internet, I believe that it's something doesn't quite limited or restricted by this kind of factors. So yeah, I believe having youth in policy making process is important, especially to technologies like artificial intelligence. Yeah, and yeah, that's basically it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any responses for this?
Thank you very much for that. I absolutely agree with the previous speaker. I think that we need to look at young people not as relevant because they're young, but because they have expertise, they have perspectives, they do the research, they experience the impacts of technology. So definitely they need to be involved. I just wanted to add a few remarks on the role of government, because I think it's a key question. I think that fundamentally the role of government is to enable. And that comes also with not providing bottlenecks or barriers. It needs to stimulate research and innovation. But there is also the role of upholding and protecting human rights. And I think with artificial intelligence, there are potential implications. Artificial intelligence in the application of, let's say, the insurance industry can discriminate against certain people. Artificial intelligence, as it's used by governments to manage big data, can also discriminate against certain population groups. So therefore, I think it's also important for government to have an oversight and establish in a transparent way regulation or guidelines that uphold human rights and that protect individuals against their rights being violated through the development or application of artificial intelligence. So I think that aspect of that regulatory role is also important, but it needs to be developed in a multi-stakeholder, bottom-up way, and in an enabling way, not in a repressive way that can stifle innovation.
Thank you very much. I think we have a connection with Robert. So let's move to the beginning. Robert, what does the ethics in technology means to you?
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me very much for inconvenience with my connections. I don't know what has happened. I put the bottom, the phone, and after that was disconnected. But this is the network. This is the new technology, not so well prepared for that kind of global conversation. But we believe that with young people, we can engage our many efforts to create the better environment for global discussion. And thank you for the question and waiting for me. And if you talk me about what the ethics of technology and internet means for me, I need rather to answer that it's not for me. Ethics, it's a plural concept. We need to combine and to compare our many diverse values around the world and try to find the common sense. If you ask me about my point of view, this is a morality. Morality could be a very diverse and, of course, can empower and reach the ethical values in the scope of artificial intelligence and new technologies and internet. But it's not, ethics doesn't exist without very rich ground of morality. But taking step to the back, why we ask about ethics in front of artificial intelligence? Because we still have a question zero. It's not a biotechnology only questions like no harm of any our activity. It is a question about accountability, auditability, and explainability of artificial intelligence, which refers with black box. We don't know how the artificial intelligence and many techniques connected in the artificial intelligence system works finally. We need to compare the inputs and results. We need some framework how to work with biases, but not coming only from the data, but only from us as a people. We, having on the table the artificial intelligence system, have an capability to shape artificial intelligence on base of good aims. We can input the good aims, and in that moment, I can see the ethics, the value, and rules, ethical rules to the inside the machine and oversight that machine, and because of that we can finally get the concept human-centered artificial intelligence and human oversight artificial intelligence. I believe, and I'm thank you of many voices before my speech now. I agree with many of them, and I've heard, and thank you for that. But relating to the Henriette first speech, that was very interesting, that we try to have step back from human rights to the ethic one more time, because now we need to define our response of question 0 in front of human rights. Human rights doesn't cover any values which could be challenged by artificial intelligence. That transparency is the first thing, accountability is the second thing, but trust is a third thing. If we get the trust, we can empower the people of understanding technology, understanding the partners use artificial intelligence and information technologies, and finally could give our capability to create our own life and our richness of productivity of our economy also. We can compete not only on access to something, data or infrastructure. We can compete of additional value which we produce using artificial intelligence, and intellectual property will be the final element of our competition. This is on my beginning statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. So now let's talk about the labor market. Lots of experts says that the people entering the labor market now will have to change their profession 2 or maybe even 3 times during their career. Is it a threat or a chance? Will robots take my job? Could you say something, Ahmad?
Do they want to take my job or your job?
Our.
Yes. So one of the main question that when it comes to my job is that this is one of those things like I'm not racist, but like anytime that this question always like is being raised, there's always let's just say a very underlying issue that has to be solved in a way better way, because a lot of time it only just shows insecurity. When people talk about immigration and I was like, they're coming here to take my job, it comes about insecurity. When they say that AI is coming here to take my job, it all comes again with insecurity. Because the reality is that if inherently we are going to be, let's just say, a positive force of nature, nobody is going to take our job. And if they do, then they would deserve it, because there is a person that can do our job way better. But not to be too philosophical and then try to dive exactly to the heart of the topic, is the fact that if we're going to have, again, not AI, but rather artificial general intelligence, because your washing machine already has AI and is already taking your job and thus washing your clothes. So I don't think that that is what we're really discussing here, is the fact that we have to focus way more on soft skills. And hopefully that is going to wake, let's just say, a part of us that it was sleeping for a very long time. And that is the fact that we are forgetting about soft skills. We're forgetting about being human. And we try to be as much machinery as possible. Clock in, clock out, do things in a process-swing way, and then always try to be accurate and efficient, that every single piece of that is against our human nature. So we can try to be more human, we can try to be more into soft skills, taking care of other people, try to be more poetic, try to be more, let's just say, creative. And these are the points that even if you're going to have AI and humans always need to work together in order to achieve that. But if your work is to basically try to sort out some numbers and then try to have the sum up of that, definitely AI is going to take your job.
Thank you very much. Jenna, Sally, Robert, would you take a statement referred to Ahmad?
I may, if I can. We believe that, of course, this is a afraidness that some shifting of our work skills is coming, but in the same moment, this is a chance. We have time to develop our skills, to understand people, to understand the environment in our work. But what is the most important? The key question is how we organize the education system in our countries, from the primary school and after the study long-term learning program. That is very important. We believe, for example, that it's not enough to increase the digital skills. The first move need to be addressed to the organization, the universal education, but personalized. We need to empower the creativity. For example, in Poland, our gap it's ability to working together in the teams. This is that, and we believe that collaborative work gives us the new jobs, new possibilities, and the shifting of our actual activity, work activity, is not under the risk. And because of that, the suggestion of coming from the Sofia is very important, that we need to try to be more compassionate to our environment in the work, our environment outside of the work, but to the other responders, our partners in the job. And if we get that link in front of our partners and to the machine, and we create a good interfaces of this, we can make our skill better prepared for the future. Thank you.
Robert, as you're having the voice, I would also like to ask you how may humans use artificial intelligence in a trusted manner?
This is a question for me. I saw that Sally put the hand. Maybe it's better to give her the voice. Yeah?
Yeah, Sally.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. I was actually going to comment on the AI taking our jobs point. So if it's an appropriate point to jump in, I can. Otherwise, I'll go after Robert.
So maybe we start from Sally, then go to Robert.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add to what Robert said, because I'm also intrigued by Ahmed's point of view, always taking us to the AGI conversation, which is quite interesting. So I got inspired by that and wanted to chip in 2 quick points. First, on the kind of immediate labor market transformation question. In Egypt, we have kind of 3 principles that guide the capacity building, the human capacity building aspect of our strategy. And that's number 1 is that AI is there to augment our lives and our jobs, not to take them away. So the primary goal should never be to cut labor. Also, of course, we're in the somewhat fortunate position as a country that we don't lack human labor force. But in general, the goal is never, it's always to optimize process, but not to cut labor. The second principle is that we believe that the best way to counter any threat to the labor market is actually by growing the pie. So providing more opportunities to people so that those who get displaced can find other opportunities elsewhere. But then the counter argument to that is, of course, the kind of sober realization that that's not going to always be possible. It's difficult to upskill someone who's close to the end of their career, for example. And so you have to make sure that you don't leave these people behind, which kind of leads me to Ahmed's point about AGI and the kind of long-term impact on labor markets. And I kind of feel that we've been discussing this a little bit too shyly, a little bit too conservatively. The fundamental point that I believe needs to be addressed is the future of economics, the future of the world economic and financial systems, the nature of work itself. How is the world economy going to work? We have a pyramid-shaped structure that is guiding the way that we structure all of our labor markets, no matter what our economic system is. And you can't just keep shifting people up that pyramid forever in terms of skill set, because ultimately you're going to be saturated at the top. And you can't have a world full of engineers and data scientists. And so how are we going to solve that problem fundamentally? What is the new world order going to look like? What are some innovative business models that take us away from this traditional, I'm just going to upskill you so you're more competitive kind of discussion, to what does this actually mean for us as humanity? What is our role on this planet going to be? And should it be to grow the economy and generate more GDP, etc.? Or should it be something different while the machines can do that work for us? And I don't think that discussion is getting what it deserves in terms of airtime. It's kind of confined to kind of so-called reclusive scientists kind of coming up with wacky ideas, and universal basic income kind of being laughed off the room in many cases. But I do think that this deserves a lot more depth in the discussion and a lot more airtime in. And I don't have an answer for it. Obviously, this is just a call for, we need to discuss this more. We need to think about the fundamental questions, not just the tactical, how do we save jobs or should we save jobs? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So maybe Alexandra will remind the question to Robert.
Yes, as there is nobody else to refer to Robert's answer, I would like to go back to the previous question that I've asked you. Maybe let me repeat it. How may humans use artificial intelligence in a trusted manner?
I have a very poor answer. Not many. Maybe a little some around the world. Today's artificial intelligence is also it's rather used as an efficiency system or surveillance system, and sometimes it's focused on prediction. It's more proper for us. But finally, the concept of trustworthiness is built now. And we try to promote that kind of framework and try to invite many actors around the world to embed that framework to the artificial intelligence and to the organizations. I still believe that building the trustworthy in the artificial intelligence system, it's not enough. We need to build the ecosystem also on the base of trustworthiness. It was like Sally said a little before. I also believe that if we deal with asymmetry of any access to infrastructure, to the data, to the markets, that will be finally concept of trustworthiness of artificial intelligence. Get it? And but the problem still is coming from the virtual space. We have a new market, not only geopolitical market, dependent on the geography. We have a virtual global space, and we have a new neighbors. This is a new chance, and we can create the trusted space of collaboration, and to build our not new order maybe, but our world, what we like, what in which we are like-minded. We believe in the same values, and we can promote the product in which somebody could trust and gives us the trustworthiness also. This is my point of view. It is a long-term journey, but worth to publish, because if not, we have only two options: surveillance and efficiency. It's not proper for well-being of people, for education, for our self-growing, self-development, and finally for understanding our being here on the earth among the people. This is the believeness with what we try to promote in Poland. This is a problem about monopolization of any access of sources and neighbors. This is.
Thank you very much. Yenna, Sally, Ahmad, would you like to refer to the Robert? Okay, I see Yenna.
Yeah, I have something to add. I pretty much really agree with Robert, most of the points. Especially, I think in the past 1 year, people become more aware of anything about technology. So let alone artificial intelligence, people learn from online or from any other channel not to trust too much about the technology that you use because of so many potential threat behind the technology they're using. Maybe there's like privacy issues, cybersecurity issues, and so many other human rights issues, including, now people in some government would use tracing app for public health reasons, but then people might be worried about whether they would use this kind of technology for surveillance. And then it's not difficult with artificial intelligence to do surveillance or do other kinds of censorship on social media too. So people kind of in that kind of environment learn to not trust technology in that sense, I believe. So I think the only way to make people to learn more and develop that kind of trust manner on the use of artificial intelligence in the future is to make the process of developing this kind of technology more open and get them more capable and empower them with the capability and ability to become part of it in the process of development and or also in evaluating or auditing how the things are set and how decisions are made. Then they feel like they're a part of it and they would trust this kind of technology. Otherwise, I think this kind of environment kind of, showing that I'm believing in that kind of dystopia kind of view, but then I believe that to build a trust manner amount of society is to make the process more open and engage with all kinds of stakeholders. Thank you.
Ahmad?
I mean, as long as we're in the country of Copernicus, I can also, try to shed some light on something a bit more fundamental. And that is the fact that there was a time that we were thinking that we're in the center of the universe and everything is basically just, it's just happening around us. And even the word artificial intelligence, to some extent, provides the fact that we have the real intelligence, and the intelligence that, let's just say, a machine can inherit would be artificial. That, again, by itself, let's just say it has its own problems and its own set of definitions. But one thing that I would say, again, going back to the definition, that it might be a bit more interesting just to have been, let's just say, explain why I mention always artificial general intelligence, because artificial intelligence is only narrowed into one specific topic. So let's just say a machine that can tell you exactly what to do with the weather forecast. It cannot even tell you if 2 + 2 is equal to 2 or 5, because it basically only works in one way and one only way. And that is not exactly what we're discussing here, because it cannot really revolutionize anything in a way that a human can do. And when it comes to artificial general intelligence, we're going to reach to something that is called superintelligence. And superintelligence is not artificial. It's what we do. It's just in a way that we cannot comprehend because it is beyond us. And unfortunately, till now, anytime we try to unleash a superintelligence, we failed. We had Microsoft Tay, that we put them on Twitter, and then after a few minutes, it became racist and it became sexist. And then after that, they take it down. They brought Zoe. Zoe is artificial intelligence, but is being limited. If you talk about anything political or, let's just say, religious-wise and everything, it doesn't answer you, because basically a set of human moralities is somehow protecting those artificial intelligence from even moving forward. So when we're talking about what will be the future, we also have to understand that we might not be the center of the universe if a superintelligence would come around. And that is the fact that maybe in the long run, we're going to be even way better, but in the short run, we're going to have huge problems, aka the cars and the horses. There was a time that if you would like to have a car, you basically have to have a guy with a flag in front of your car moving, because it was frightening the horses that they were on the street. Right now, I think it's a bit funny just to, try to just worry about your car is frightening another horse in the street. So I really feel that by the time that superintelligence is going to come, we're going to see literally some horses and cars running in the same street, that one of them is way slower than the other.
Thank you very much. So we are on the United Nations event. Then I have to ask about Agenda 2030. So Sally, the role of technology in Agenda 2030, which contains 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, that's a topic near and dear to my heart. So as I mentioned, in Egypt, we're really focused on this. We're talking about AI for development and prosperity, and this is pretty much all we do, or most of what we do. And this applies to any technology, really. We've been in Egypt, we've been undergoing a massive digital transformation effort of all sectors for the past few years, which aims at introducing technology into each sector, like agriculture, like planning, healthcare, of course, infrastructure management, finance and banking, and so on. But ultimately, I think the role of technology in development is inevitable. Because if you want to scale, and if you want to do so fast, and if you want to reach a very large number of people, then technology at whatever level is really the only option. There's only so much kind of non-technical solutions can achieve. And I especially like data-driven methods, I have to say, because they have such, they don't have a huge footprint on the ground. Of course, the environmental footprint is a different story, but in terms of requiring CapEx, in terms of hardware installations and so on, it can be quite minimal. So you don't have to deploy complex machinery to benefit from it. And I'll give you an example. Agriculture is something that's really important to my country, and we've been trying to modernize that sector for ages. And the beauty about using technology in agriculture is that you can introduce it at whatever layer or whatever level is convenient for you. So you could automate all of your operations using robotics and full automation, big machines deployed in all the fields at scale. But you can also have relatively small solutions with AI plus IoT, kind of planting sensors in strategic places, gathering insights, and then you can choose to action these insights whichever way works for you. So even manually if you want. So I could use technology for pest detection. I could use drone imagery, for example, or aerial footage. But then I can also use a drone for spot spraying these pests, or I can send someone in with a small can of spray who can take care of it, depending on my priorities and my circumstances as a country and as a business. And I can use technology to optimize the ecosystem too, without even doing anything in the field. So supply chain management, for example, farm operations, and so on and so forth. And so just by installing IT systems, I can actually extract value and modernize that sector without any big intervention in the field. One example we're doing is we're launching, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, a smart farmer's assistant. That we've developed together with the Ministry of Agriculture, which simply gives farmers advice. It's a chatbot, so based on machine learning techniques, expert input, and so on. It tells farmers what to do, answers the questions, and so on. But ultimately, it doesn't require you to use any technology other than your mobile phone. And you don't even need to be literate because you can talk to it. So it's a way to increase productivity, scale quickly, as I mentioned, reach a wide audience, and bridge gaps like literacy and financial means, and so on. And this can apply to all developmental sectors, really, kind of the same concept. So I think technology can and should play a big role in this, in achieving sustainable development goals. And I even think that when the UN sets its next agenda for SDGs or whatever they end up being called from 2030 onwards, there should be an even more conscious inclusion of technology in realizing it and how technology can be deployed to achieve each of these goals, which I think the UN and its organizations are particularly well placed to help with as well, because it then represents a huge opportunity for international cooperation and for countries and businesses to really work together and complement each other's abilities. So yeah, I'm particularly glad that there are more and more conversations about deploying technology to help with the SDGs, and I can only hope for more as we get closer to 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, for that expression. It's very, very interesting. I agree with everything, but maybe I try to a little add something or show the mirror, maybe Black Mirror. This is why we talk about ethics of artificial intelligence, because we have a black box. We don't know how the results are processing and how the inputs are the best for our work. If we link and connect the artificial intelligence not prepared on the human oversight, for example, or ethical framework, and to try and allow to the that system has an influence to the sustainable development, it could be risky from the perspective of well-being, human dignity, harming, and autonomy also. And maybe because of that, that was also our work together in UNESCO. We try to establish a compass which carry us among many conflicts of many values and rules. For example, sustainability. That compass is consists with the well-being, human dignity, no harm. This is a triangle. A last discussion among member states shown the fourth element, autonomy. I think that is good. That we that could be good that we finish our work with a recommendation for artificial intelligence or for our global perspective, and after that we link to the sustainable development agenda. It will be oppositely, it is very risky for the artificial intelligence and human, and for the sustainable development also. On my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we are moving forward, we would like to ask you another question for all of you, dear experts. And the question is, what kind of thought, just one thing that you would like to leave our participants with after today's event? Yes, Ahmad.
I mean, I can somehow, let's just say, take advantage of behind Carol's background is this massive change book. And I would say I totally recommend everybody to read this because, you know, especially, let's just say Bruce Mao, it's like, he is a very specific kind of a visionary. And one of the things that he said, and I really like, was that he said that when the outcome drives the process, we will only go ever that, you know, like we have already been. But if the process drives the outcome, we may not know where we're going, but we will know that we want to be there. And that is a huge difference. Because one of the things that I see in many capacities when it comes to processing and telling us where we want to go with artificial intelligence, with our future, is, let's just say that I can also try to give you another metaphor, is that around the year 1900, they asked some artist to draw the future based on how the year 2000 is going to look in 100 years. And because back then everything was about railways and everything was about steam engine and everything, they were just basically looking at the fact that there's going to be railways in the middle of the ocean and there's going to be steam engines all over the world, meaning that we only think that the things that we're going to have are going to be better and they're going to be used in a better ways. But the reality in the year 2000, we're not flying, and at the same time, there are no railways in the middle of an ocean. So we don't really have to think that we exactly know what is going to happen, but rather we have to have an open mind and then try to just make sure that if we believe in those set of rules, then those things are going to bring us into a better future without us knowing exactly how that future is going to look like.
Okay, now moving to Janna.
So I believe we're really at the forefront of dealing with these very important issues around artificial intelligence and the impacts of digitalization of humanity. So other than, you know, being worried too much about the future, I think we should also focus on, you know, empowering ourselves and our next generations, because with the power of all people, I believe that we would develop the future that we want. And so I believe that also around the topic of ethics in tech. I believe that, empowering us with the capacity, since now we have the internet and, comparing to people back in 10 years ago, we already have so many resources where we can easily access to learn about our environment and people who might not share the exact same value or morality with us. So with that kind of resources, I believe that we can, quickly adopt to the new environment and this ever-changing development of technology, and then we will be able to, come up with something where we can have, it's not like achieving something that might bring negative impact to our future, but something good together. I'm positive about that. So thank you.
So maybe Sally?
The one thought I'd like to end with is inclusiveness. I think none of what we discussed today can be achieved if we keep thinking and working in silos. And this is a great opportunity for humanity to start talking to each other. And it cannot be achieved. Like, there's so much that we still need to figure out. There's so much that we need to agree on. So many fundamentals that need to be laid. And for any group, whether it's one country or a group of countries or a group of companies or even a group of individuals, to think that they can monopolize the conversation and tell everyone else what to do is going to be not only detrimental, but catastrophic for all of us. So whatever we can all do to promote inclusiveness and multi-stakeholder conversations and multidisciplinarity, and call it whatever you want, but involving as many people, as many organizations, as many points of view as possible is crucial to having all of these conversations. And we do need many more of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Then Robert.
Thank you very much. That was a very good discussion. Many topics on the table. But if you ask me about one thing, but one maybe thought, not only think, it is that from my side. Don't afraid about general artificial intelligence. We have a many 100 years to construct the undeterministic infrastructure, computer infrastructure for that. Without this, no general artificial intelligence will come. That is not a question about consciousness. If general artificial intelligence is not come. Now we have only the intelligent agent, technical side of artificial intelligence. We need to work with science stream of artificial intelligence also. But finally, if we have a deterministic architecture, we land to the agent and to the human controlled artificial intelligence system, and because of that, we have a time to learn each other, ourselves, learn the machines, and get a lesson from machines also. Because if a machine process data and any knowledge quicker because of a quantum speedity, we can get results faster, but still we need to check the results for our real life. And my one mission and think after today is, let's try to move from the state of information society, where we are the source of commercial information only, to the state of knowledge society. But after discussion with Sofia, we can say simply, yes, if we get the trust, we can create the compassion environment to understand and feel each other more as humans, not only as individuals in our citizens. It is a very good chance to understand our position in our country because of understanding the position of anybody in other country. We have a space in front of us, we have an info space, but we have a cosmos space also. We need to be prepared for that kind of exploration also. Thank you for that. And this is the mission. Don't afraid. Let's collaborate for benefits of artificial intelligence. It's possible still.
Thank you very much. Yes, Ahmed?
I just wanted to say one of the things that I studied AI, let's just say more than 10 years ago, and we never would call it AI. And one of the things that right now, let's just say it's like, we really like to just jump on the wagon of the trends. And we don't talk enough about quantum supremacy as much as we talk about AI. And one of the problems that we are calculating the ages that we're going to find artificial intelligence has a lot to do with bits. But we already, with Google's announcement, achieve quantum supremacy, meaning that if the quantum computers are going to achieve the artificial intelligence, then the whole speed of the process is going to exponentially is going to be lower. And the fact that you have to also understand that the super intelligence is going to exponentially going to go high. So if you're going to have level 1 by today, the level 2 is going to be in 2 minutes. And before you even know, you're just going to basically reach the level that is called singularity. And then you basically don't even know when that happened. And that is the fact that, as I mentioned, it's really hard to predict the future. I just would like to always be the person who would be the commentator, because really try to understand how the future would look like and when the future that we're expecting is going to happen. It's a really, really hard thing to do.
Thank you. As far as I'm concerned, the time is running very fast. And that's why we need to move forward to our Q&A section. Is there anybody from our participants who would like to ask a question? Please raise your hands. Well, if nobody would like to do it right now, we also have other questions from the audience. Our anonymous attendee asked why governments try to make young people interested in artificial intelligence. Is there anybody from our experts who would like to answer that?
Can I answer that?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Could you repeat the question before, because that was bad sound?
Sorry, again?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, of course. So the question was why governments try to make young people interested in artificial intelligence.
I mean, one thing that I can say is back in the days, you had 4 to 6 years, depending on which system of education you would study, to be able to start your study and then after that graduate and then be in the market and then try to develop that into, let's just say, a career for yourself. But right now, if you really take a look at the technology, if you really want to spend 4 to 6 years to try to learn something, by the time that you're going to be a graduate from the university, whatever you studied is already out of date. And technically speaking, whatever you're doing is not going to be practical, and the labor is not going to really be in the need of what exactly you studied 4 years ago. But if you really try to understand the reinforcement learning, if you really try to understand the value of how the artificial intelligence and understanding and systematic thinking toward that is going to help, that might be the only thing that you might need, let's just say, from a person who just wants to finish their education. Let's just say that we're going to have a 12K education plus 4 years of, let's just say, higher education in 16 years. I don't think anything specific that you want to study by this moment would be really helpful for anybody in around the year 2030 to 2040.
If I can, it was a very good question. I support previous expression, but trying to add something. It is not enough to only create the program of artificial intelligence in the educational program. It's rather more proper for the challenges of artificial intelligence to establish the educational framework, educational program of universal education also. And the key is how we can conceptualize problems and how we can solve the problems. what we see in our life, and the artificial intelligence could deal with this after our human oversight. It is not only the mathematics, it's not only in informatics. Maybe it's not a joke, better to start education from the music, because we have a notes, we have a space, we have a sound, so we have a possibility to orchestrate. We have many samples to do something, and if we create our mind, prepare for changing, it's better for future. And finally, talents. It's a last diamond of our economy. If we lose the talents, we lose our sovereignty and our autonomy of our economy. This is the key competition now. Even United States and some experts show that moving talents from United States to the other country is risky for that economy. If that country said like this, it is big signal also that people are the diamond of our economy. People diamonds for each other also, and we can be more educated, but also more trusted to ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. We have another interesting question. Do you think it will be possible to transfer our consciousness inside of a virtual body or machine, or at least copy of our consciousness to be able to save people sick with incurable disease?
Who is hero for that question?
Ahmad.
Okay.
Ahmad, I can't hear you. Ahmad, I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it better now? Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the main factors that we have as one of the biggest question marks in humanity right now is the word consciousness, because a lot of things that we're right now associating with the soul or everything else that we just don't know about ourselves goes back to the word consciousness. There are lots of scientists that are working on the word consciousness, but even right now, we don't even know what our consciousness is. So the fact of trying to put it into another human being, it is something that, let's just say, you don't know what you have, and now you're just asking if something that we have no idea what that is, where that is going to be. But the reality is that most of the activities that we do has nothing to do with our consciousness, but rather it has to do with the conscious activities that we are trying to do in our brain. So if you really take a look at especially the brain project that is, let's just say it started during the Obama time in the US, and they already finished this project. And there's the fact that right now you can easily have the full project that can somehow, from our, let's just say, artificial point of view, regenerate a brain. Yes, so you can easily try to have a brain that is going to be fully, let's just say, from a point of view, functional as a human being, and you can basically try to have it somewhere else. But the reality is that I really wish there was even one person that can right now try to give you a specific definition of the consciousness that would be, let's just say, acceptable by everybody, you know, like as a philosophers and also as scientists.
Thank you very much. Robert, floor is yours.
Great question and great answer. Thank you for that. We have in Poland a philosopher, Włodzimierz Sedlak, and he has an answer in the 70s. Sum of information don't create the consciousness. This is only structure. Consciousness is a different state, undeterministic. We are very origin on Earth, and believing in that, of course, we can create copies of our behaving to the computers. We can create the shadows in the computers. It is still good aim to get it, but personally, maybe I don't believe that final transfer, human conscious, human body, human being to the computer will be possible. But of course, that kind of projects we see around the world, and that kind of aims, it's available, of course. And this is a big challenge how to do it. But it's only infrastructure of brain, not consciousness. Thank you very much.
Okay, once again, we would like to ask the participants if they have any questions to ask live. If there is anybody like this, we would like him or she or her to raise a hand.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. How long will it take to make artificial intelligence and humans on the same level? Because right now I think the humans are standing higher in the hierarchy. And I was wondering, how long will it take for artificial intelligence and humans to be on the same basis in society?
Thank you for the question.
Would like to answer?
Cheat, if you don't mind, because
No
for me, Ray Kurzweil is one of those guys that is always, let's just say, it fascinates me how he talks, and don't ask me about the details of that, but because what you're describing is literally singularity, and he literally pinpointed 2045 as the year that we're going to reach singularity. But if you really want to know about that, he has very interesting talks that you can find on YouTube, and he will basically try to explain exactly how he calculated it. So that's a short answer from my side.
Robert, you also raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you. But what I can give the first move other speakers, of course, this is still interesting. Yeah, also great question. I think it took us many years. That is related to the previous answer. Even it's very difficult to say how many years, but it's about 60 years, very close to the 100 years. Why? Because if we don't create the general AI, the machine finally will be poor. But to this moment, it's worth to develop our brain, our humanism inside of our condition as a human being. If we took a chance now to educate ourselves to be more prepared for meeting with machines, that will be very good for people to finally stay in front of general artificial intelligence if will come. I think that is better don't afraid of this, but rather to create our everyday by education. Try to find the good and proper interface in front of machine and human being. That could be different to the different aims. In the work will be different, in education will be different, in entertainment is very important, could be different also. But that interface, it's a key challenge for the next coming maybe 5 years only, not on 10 years. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Henriette, as long as you're not only our honorable guest, but also an expert, we would like to ask you a question from Karolina Plaszczyńska, who would like to give a stand.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yes, I have a question. It's about a past, because I think we should learn from a past. And we need to do it. So my question is, the things that were done in the past may sometimes be called questionable. Of course, we wasn't at the same level as we is in the science. So my question is modifying our thinking about ethics is good? Should we change with time, or we should have some things that should never be changed, have some morals that always keep the same?
And thank you for that challenging question. I first want to also just add a little bit to the previous question. And I just want to ask, why should we try to make artificial intelligence or machine intelligence the same as human? I think, as Robert was saying, it's really the complementarity and the dynamic engagement between different kinds of processing and different kinds of learning that is very exciting. But in response to your question, I think that, as we've already said, morality changes. It's already different between generations, between individuals, between culture and religion. And I think, and that applies to ethics as well. So I think, yes, we do need to change. Society changes. Look at something like gender equality, something such as respect for different forms of sexual expression and sexual orientation. We change, and we do need to change our values. I think what is important, though, is to use the existing human rights framework and the standards that it provides as a kind of check and balance. So as we evolve, as we think differently about ethics and about values, yes, let's change, but let's use this global, international, cross-border framework of fundamental rights as checks and balance. Maybe we'll change that as well from time to time, but it's less easy to change that than how we think about values on a day-to-day basis. So I think both, yes, let's change, evolve, but let's also use that fundamental protection for individual rights that evolved over time as a backdrop, as a bottom line.
Thank you very much. We have our next participants. Magda and Mateusz would like to ask you something.
Good morning. So my question is, do you think that AI will be the hostile for us? Like, though, if they will like live with us, be something like a race. I'm thinking about that. If they will be like, they love like a human, if they will be hostile for us, or they'll try to be like with us, being the like race. Do you think it will be good?
Thank you. Now Mateusz Grabiński.
Good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes.
You are talking a lot about AI and how to program them and how to they live with humans, but what about dangerous which is following with artificial intelligence? Does it even exist, or?
Okay, thank you, Mateusz. Maybe Jenna or Sally would like to answer for these two questions.
I can have a go at the first one. I couldn't exactly understand the second one. So are they going to be hostile or not? I think it largely depends on us. I think all theories point to the fact that, I mean, if technology, if robots, if AI, whatever you want to call it, becomes a race, then it's going to start out as all races start, becoming a pretty idealistic being, and then be kind of tainted by its surrounding environment. And so if you listen to people like Elon Musk, the main reason he's afraid of AI is actually because of the disincentives that we're going to give it, that will compel it to either protect itself or to optimize the environment around it. And pretty quickly, it's going to realize that the main detriment to life on Earth are actually humans, and must seek to eliminate them. So it's a very kind of apocalyptic type of view, but it is possible. And the question here is, how are we going to prepare for this? And because, you know, according to if you adopt the kind of singularity approach, then we won't really have much control over how these beings are going to think or behave. But then we can try to instill in them the values and principles that make us human, or that we believe is right. And then treat them with the same kind of dignity that in many ways we have failed to treat each other as humans with, which I think is going to be our biggest challenge. So no big kind of revelation here, just saying that I think it's going to be very much dependent on the state of the world when that happens, and also how we kind of set the tone for the interaction with these machines or with this intelligence, what we expect of it, and how we set those expectations with it, and that will determine whether or not it's going to be hostile.
Thank you. Yes, Robert?
May I? It is a very interesting question, but maybe I answer by questions. Why we use the race name for that kind of phenomenology? If we create the artificial intelligence, that will be millions of types of artificial intelligence, millions of examples, with probably one ethic that will be fine, but with additional value, morality, also controlled by humans. Before we called artificial intelligence as a race, what I don't propose it, we need to appreciate about animals. They are beings, they lives, yes. And we don't consider that they represent the race. They represent the types, the genes. This is a diversity of our planet, and it is better that we understand quicker that we are all live together on the same planet, and the artificial intelligence is our companion, our not toy, not slaves, but our companion for our future. It is companion without personality now, still yet, but it's a companion as our designed by us, our partner. But what is worth to underline now, that it is global consensus to don't allow that artificial intelligence will be the legal personalhood. This is very important, very, very key element. If we decide to do it, the many landscape of treaties around the world will be under pressure and will be a real dystopian. I'm really happy that Sofia, in front of her, some country presented the citizenship, don't accept it. That was first move that artificial intelligence doesn't accept it, that to be a citizenship. That kind of sample can give us the idea that many engineers who works on that are very sympathy for the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really interesting.
Jenna.
I want to quickly add something on top of what Sally and Robert said, because it just recorded me from a book by called Sapiens. I think many people read. So that's why I also think that calling AI a race might not be appropriate, because we categorize people by different races because of social structure. We call it that way. So in that sense, biologically, artificial intelligence and human beings totally different species. So there are different types of things that exist in the world. So in that sense, I think that way, so also there's another question just earlier. I think AI, will in a really just a few decades, I think technically we could do it where AI can be really advanced, but then before it reached to a level that become such an advanced technology, there will be tons of discussions about the ethics behind this kind of technology, which stop us from getting that kind of level advanced. I'm just trying to pull together what I'm trying to say, because even just right here we're discussing this kind of fundamental issues, because people have different values and moralities and ethic kind of, and also standards. So I think it takes a long way from here at this point to the situation where all the participants mentioned. I think it takes time, not because technically we can't do it, but because of so many things that is related to ethics. So yeah, thank you. Just want to add 2 points.
Thank you. As I can see, we have many inquiries which occurred on our chat from our participants regarding jobs that disappear, complexity of artificial intelligence that becomes uncontrollable, why governments do not invest in open source technologies like GNU or Linux. But as the time comes to an end, let's stay with the simpler question from our Q&A part, which is, do governments spend enough money in developing new technologies? Shouldn't we work harder or saving our planet? It's from an anonymous asker. Yes, Ahmad.
First of all, I just wanted to somehow borrow from all of other speakers and then try to somehow, if you don't mind, because I didn't answer the previous question, try to somehow answer both of them. And that is the fact that if this might not be the most, let's just say, mainstream answer, but if AIs are going to come after us, they're going to come after our ego, not after our jobs. And if you even take a look at Sophia, she does not have legs, but she has hands. And the reason that she has hands and she has our face is not because this is the optimum face or this is the optimum things that she would have. We are trying to get, let's just say, our neural link and put it in our head that we would have a better way of communicating with our devices. But we would basically put 2 hands for Sophia because we just want to make sure that, let's just say, we would feel more comfortable with that. And that is the very fundamental things that we have to understand. Again, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that we have to fix before anything else is the fact that we have to try to understand that the future that we're envisioning, it has a lot to do with our comfort that is very, very fragile. And that is the fact that when we are trying to, let's just say, categorize ourselves, exactly as Robert said, that we, let's just say that all of a sudden randomly go to the word race, that doesn't really mean anything. Or if we really try to understand even the word, the definition of job, we basically go for the past 100 years definition of job. So what we really can see in the future, hopefully, is that by more automation, that again, it has nothing to do with AI, and by understanding the foundation of how the, let's just say, our system of thinking is going to work, hopefully we can try to create a future that is going to be even more human, but at the same time, way more different than what we have right now.
Robert or Ian, okay, Robert.
Yes, thank you very much for the floor. I would like to say on this way, if you have money and you don't have the talents, you don't have access to infrastructure, you don't have access to the knowledge and the data, you are not productive in artificial intelligence challenging. And because of that, the key is to coordinate many assets, money also, but not enough money. Of course, if you have money, you can put ask the call for anything, but without the talents, what I tried to mention today, your result will be very poor. It is a question about the competition between economies, the centrum of systems of economies. For example, the Northern America and Asia. This is still a question about the high-level creative minds in the talents. That is a key. And for that, it's money worth to spend. And I think that is a task for wisdom governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ianna?
Just want to quickly add something. I'm not an expert from the government or from the AI industry, but I personally am believing in more of open market. Of course, I know that support from government is really essential, especially when you're first starting something. But I believe any government is also, should be driven by a society. So I believe with an open market, with that kind of financially driven by an open market, will make things happen, works too. In some other situation, I mean, I'm not sure about the situations in America or Europe, but in Asia, there's like really diverse, and many country has different political stance somehow. If sometimes when government invests too much, there might be some potential risk, is that they might have too much influence in the development, let alone, I mean, for example, technology or some other industry too. So if we are having too much participation from government, first thing is that, of course, support from them is good, because they are the one who make the policies of one country. But at the same time, sometimes you never know what would happen in the future, and they might always has a percent of chances that they might have too much influence on your on the development. I mean, if you have a good business model, things would work in your way, and then you can let your creativity and innovations evolve, and it might work. I'm not against support from government, but I believe if you really have a good business model, things would work out. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ahmad. Thank you very much, Yenna. Thank you very much, Robert, and also Sally. Unfortunately, we have limited time. That was a pleasure to talk with you. That was very inspiring, but we have to moving forward. And now we will have a presentation from Youth IGF, one of the organizers.
We all live in a digital world. We all need it to be open and safe. We all want to trust.
And to be trusted.
We all despise control.
And desire freedom.
We are all united.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so my name is Emilia Zalewska. I am from the Youth IGF Poland, and we have the pleasure to be cooperating with the Council of Dialogue on organizing this event, and also we are co-organizers of this year's Youth Summit. And together with my colleague Marta Mosidłowska, who is also here, we would like to present you the idea of the Youth Summit and why it is worth to get involved. I know that we are a bit out of time, but please stay with us, because I think that if you join this event today, you are interested in the artificial intelligence, and we would like to tell you how you can get engaged, how you can use your skills or ideas. So the Youth Summit is the event that takes place every year before the Internet Governance Forum. So this year it takes place in Katowice in December in Poland. And this is the event that is totally dedicated to young people. It is usually organized by youth, for youth. And it gathers people from all over the world and creates a space for them to exchange ideas, opinions, and to think all together how we as young people can make the internet a safer and more inclusive, and just in general a better place for everyone. And we really hope that this year's Youth Summit will be very special, because as Jenna made a very good observation here today, we as young people quite often face the problem that we are in our own bubble. We are labeled as youth, as young people, and sometimes it is really difficult for us to pass our ideas, our views to the decision makers. We are not treated equally as the part of the decision-making process. And that's something that we really would like to focus on during this year's Youth Summit. We would like to look for ways, look for the connections, how we as young people can make our voices more heard, how we can interest policymakers in our ideas, in what we have to say. So this year we also started the preparations very early, and we divided them into 2 phases. And we are right now in the middle of the phase 1. It is the phase of the webinars. We have already started in April, and we had a webinar on the topic of green internet, the second webinar we are having right now. And we had an opportunity to hear today a lot of brilliant comments from our speakers. It was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. And also in June, we will have the third webinar from this phase, and it will be dedicated to the topic of digital inclusion and especially digital education. Also, during this third webinar, we will share with you the link to the registration to the second part of the project that will take place in autumn. So now I will tell you a few words about the second part, which is, I think, the very, very important part, because it is when we will look for these ways how we can become more effective youth activists. So this stage will be dedicated only to previously selected participants. So as I said before, via our social media that you will have links provided at the end of this presentation, we will share the registration form in which potential participants will be asked to choose their main field of interest in internet governance. So in which field they have ideas, in which field they feel the most experienced in. And then basing on their choice, the selected participants will be divided into groups. And each group will work on the particular topic area. And of course, the first goal of these groups is to do networking among the participants, because those will be also the future participants of the Youth Summit. And the second one is to prepare policy papers in which the participants will include answers to 3 questions. The first question is, what is the problem? So the task of participants will be to name the problem or the challenge they can find in the particular field of internet governance. The second one will be what can be done to solve it. So looking for solutions. And the third one, and I think it's something very, very important, and it's too often being omitted, is who can solve it or who can help young people in solving it. So who youth should ask for help, who can support us, which other stakeholder groups. And taking these three questions all together would help us in creating points of action. So the very specific proposition, the very specific postulates on what can be done to solve particular problems and who can help us, who can help, who can support us as young people in having it done. And here you can see some propositions of the thematic areas we would like to focus on, but we are also very open to the suggestions. I think that within the next few weeks, we will release the survey to ask you what are the topics with the highest priority for you. What would you like to see as the part of the Youth Summit? And then in autumn, in these groups, we will focus on preparing these policy papers, and then there is Youth Summit. And during the Youth Summit, we will present the results of our work in autumn. And you, if you will get involved, you will also have an opportunity to present this work with us. And I think it's really worth it because you will not only have an opportunity to present it to the large forum of young people, because it is usually hundreds of people from all over the world, but also to the high representatives from the United Nations, even maybe Secretary General himself, but also high representatives of many governmental and non-governmental organizations, or high representatives of countries. So I think that the forum to which we will have an opportunity to present these outcomes will be quite impressive. And of course, there are a lot of other advantages of taking part in this project, but now my colleague Marta will tell you more about it.
Hear you?
As Emilia mentioned, can you hear me?
Yeah, now yes.
Hello. Okay, so as Emilia mentioned, I will tell you a little bit more about why actually should we get involved and why should you get involved in Youth IGF. First of all, Youth IGF is like a preludium to the general GF. And in my opinion, diving relatively early into those structures might bring you better understanding of whole organization, which is quite huge and quite important right now for whole United Nations, as well as be to have a good preparation to become an expert in the field of internet governance. And internet governance, internet, as we already know, is a phenomenon that consists of various different topics, from technical dimensions through more social-centered problems like cybersecurity, mental health, education, and even since recent times, as our first topic of webinar was, environmental focused topics, and everyone can actually find something to be passionate about. It is also, as you can see on the photo, an opportunity to meet people from all over the world. This is a photo from Berlin IGF from 2019. And as far as I know, those people are still in touch, gathered in different youth organizations, helping each other to grow and find new work or learning opportunities. And as I also know from my experience, or Emilia from her experience, involvement in one organization fuels involvement in another organization, giving you a chance to do different fascinating things. Emilia, can you maybe give me another slide, please? So last but not least, as we are running out of time, on behalf of my colleagues of Youth IGF Poland, I would like to invite you all to participate in our next meeting organized in cooperation with NASK and Zamenhof Institute on the topic of education all-inclusive, including and educating the excluded as a crucial factor in building a better society. We will reveal some more information on Wednesday. So please, for more details, you can follow our social media accounts, which are here, and we'll try to maybe copy paste you in the comment, or you can just find us on Youth IGF Poland on Facebook or LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the presentation. As we reached the end of our today's webinar, we would like to thank again our prelegents, but also our organizers, who are again Piotr Mazurek, Polish Plenipotentiary of Youth Policy, Youth Internet Governance Forum Poland, Council for Dialogue with the Young Generation. Thank you. Big thanks to our participants. Thanks for staying with us for such a long time. Hopefully see you soon in Katowice.
And of course, thanks to the Trend House for this amazing space. See you soon.